Hey guys, what's up? This is Diego here at Cinemageddon Reviews. So, this is going to be a little bit of a different video than you're used to seeing from us here on the channel. We're still in the process of shifting a few things around as far as what direction we're going to go in from now on. You can check out our State of the Channel 2023 video for the full context, but now that the Diegoverse saga is over and the story is finished, I get to talk to you guys about this new project that I've been working on. I'm really excited because I've actually been working on this for quite a while now, and I think it's solid enough that I can share it and feel as though it's as good as it's going to be. This isn't going to be as upbeat as some of the other videos I make, but this means a lot to me, and I wanted to share a few updates and a few personal stories, and just kind of give you guys a look at what I get up to when I'm not making videos for the channel. And also, just objectively, you guys like cool stuff, and hopefully you'll find this interesting to watch too, so there's that. So as you know, I love storytelling, I love writing, and I love entertaining my audience with a good story. Whether it makes you laugh, or cry, or both, that's my thing. And it's something that I hope to do full-time someday. And for the past 3 years, I've been working on this project and tweaking it and making it better and better each time. This is going to have a few visual aids so you can actually see what things are going to look like. And I'm also going to give you context as to some ideas in the story and how I came up with them. So without further ado, let me introduce you guys to my biggest passion project. It is a story entitled Scales of the West. As you can see, I made this proof of concept poster. This is something that I made in Photoshop a while back, and this poster gives you a pretty good idea of the world that the story is going to take place in. So it takes place in a version of the Old West where instead of horses and cows and other regular modern day animals, the entire human population lives among dinosaurs, and also other prehistoric animals like mammals and stuff like that. The easiest way I can explain how it all works is if I first tell you, think of it as a parallel timeline to how the Old West really was. With a few major differences, it's not just the obvious Old West but with dinosaurs, and also a couple of smaller nuances that make it feel fresh. And this is going to make more sense as I go along. Now before we go on, I want to tell you guys how I came up with the idea for the story. I've been writing this story since the summer of 2020. It started off as a feature-length screenplay, which actually got nominated for a few awards in New York and Los Angeles, and I did pitch it around a few festivals in my area to try to get it optioned, but because the concept and the world it takes place in is so expensive to bring to life in a live-action film, I was given some constructive feedback as to how I should make this project into a reality. So fast forward to today, almost 3 years later, I am almost about 3/4 into a manuscript for a book. So stories about humans existing alongside dinosaurs have been around for a while. Some of the bigger ones are Jurassic Park, the Turok comics, the Ark video games, and there's a show on Disney Plus for very young children called Dino Ranch. I can assure you that my story is different from all other dinosaur and human stories in its own special way. Where I came up with the idea for the world of Scales of the West is actually from a digital artist named Sean Keenan. I came across a Facebook post in 2020 talking about his Kickstarter campaign for his art book entitled Dinosaurs of the Wild West. I remember just being so captivated by his work. The striking design of the creatures and the way they interacted with the humans in the illustrations, you could tell he put a lot of thought into how a world like this would work. Now obviously I couldn't just take his work and write a story around that, but the idea for a larger world was there, and after a lot of thinking I came up with a few ways to make a more grounded version of the world he presented as part of a story that I think would resonate with everybody, younger and older readers, and I wanted to make sure that it was a world that felt different from what Sean Keenan envisioned. Now the way I have it set up in the story, the way this world works and how the people live in it is, this is a much more hostile world than ours. First of all, in the Old West, we were much less technologically advanced than we are now, that much is obvious, and in a world full of giant dinosaurs and monsters, you can imagine it makes traveling in daily life that much more dangerous. There are dinosaurs that people have managed to domesticate, mostly herbivores like Parasaurolophus, Triceratops, and Gallimimus, that serve as cattle, beasts of burden, or just for transportation. And there are also smaller pets like little pterosaurs and smaller creatures that people keep as companions. Then there are the predators like Utahraptors and larger pterosaurs, your Pteranodon, your Istiodactylus, etc. These are harder to domesticate, and people usually just treat them like threats and a lot of times like vermin. They're viewed as unclean, and also depending on their size as a larger threat. Quite a few of the action scenes in Scales of the West revolve around these animals. And then there's the top of the food chain, the rogues like the Quetzalcoatlus and the T-Rex. These guys are aggressive, they're very hard to kill, and impossible to domesticate. So there's definitely a hierarchy in the animal kingdom and a kind of system to it, because I wanted it to feel more realistic. In Scales of the West, I've also established that human civilization is clustered into towns and cities in certain areas, but a lot of the territory in North America is unsettled. One of the central aspects of this story is about how the westward expansion failed in this timeline because of how dangerous this land is. Between the wars that occurred between the Native American tribes and the army, both sides suffered heavy losses and came to kind of a reluctant stalemate. The main place where the story takes place is this small desert town on the edge of what I've come to call the wildlands called Triceratops Canyon, and then beyond the desert is a vast stretch of woodland called Deadwood Forest. That's where all the predators all live and where they hunt down any and all prey that they can find. It's effectively a no man's land, and going in there for any reason at all is ill-advised, to say the least. What I wanted to do when I set up this world is keep a constant danger of being attacked by predators a real possibility. There are a number of very fun and very intense action scenes in Scales of the West where the characters are chased by dinosaurs. I wanted to give off the sense that in this world, man is definitely not the dominant species. It makes for a more fun adventure, a more realistic setting, and a more interesting story overall. I also wanted to set up something that was worldwide. In most, if not all, of the stories about humans and dinosaurs that I've seen, they've been confined to mostly just one single location, like a remote island, or a town, or an underground cave system, etc., etc. I wanted this to be the normality of this world to make it feel more unique. So even though you can look at this world and recognize it immediately as the Old West, there are still a lot of different ways that this world has been influenced by the threat of the dinosaurs. Okay, so I've set up the world, now let's talk about the story. The main characters of Scales of the West are Emma Hill and John Blue Jr., two best friends in their early 20s who live in the small town of Triceratops Canyon. They are the children of the town marshals Frank Hill and John Blue Sr., and both of these marshals are murdered on the same night. Very quickly, the town is given a new marshal, a man by the name of Calvin Ruth, who implements new militarized practices like hiring a dozen new deputies and riding on the backs of Utah raptors to terrorize people. One thing he's not doing with all these resources is investigating the two murders. It's becoming increasingly obvious that both of these things are connected, so Emma and Junior decide they're going to investigate these murders themselves, both to get justice for their father's deaths as well as before someone else gets hurt. One other character I want to mention is Emma's animal companion. It's an iguanodon named Rover. Now, personality-wise, Rover's actually very special, he's very smart, and his personality is very much like a loyal horse. He's playful and he's a hard worker, and he also has his own little character arc going off on the side. It was actually very fun to write, one of my favorite parts of Scales of the West, personally. There's also an entire human character that I haven't mentioned yet, and this is on purpose. His name is Nate. And Nate is a very unique character who has his own little thing going on in the story, and it's actually what ties this whole thing together. He helps Emma and Junior as they go on this adventure, and it leads to some pretty exciting stuff. I can't tell you what it is, though, because it would spoil the end of the story. What I can tell you is that Nate's role in Scales of the West is what makes it so special, and you never know who could be watching this video, so that part I'm actually going to keep a secret. I had to tell you about Nate, because he's a very cool character, he's a very prominent role, and without him, the story just doesn't work. Moving on. Okay, so here's where the video gets a little more serious. One thing you need to know about these characters is that Emma is white and Junior is Native American. And this does play a significant role in the story because one of the central themes is racism against indigenous people and the after effects of the war on the people of this town. One of the things the story explores is how Emma and Junior's friendship is torn apart as they investigate the murder, and it's specifically because of how them being of different races affects them differently. That definitely is a politically charged subject. Part of what motivated me to include this was the time in which I came up with the story. July of 2020, the Black Lives Matter protests. It stuck with me, what I saw on the news and on the internet back then, and it was a big turning point for me personally. This isn't a subject that I approached lightly. I wanted to make sure I did plenty of research on the subject and the experience of being Native American in a post-expansion world and how it affected their way of life. I read articles online for years and years, and I asked people who knew about Native American culture and their experiences, and every time I found something I needed to fix, I fixed it immediately. And I think I managed to depict this very accurately and tastefully, without taking away from the tone of the story or its intended message. So one question that may be on your mind at this point, this is a story about racism starring a white character. Is this a white savior story? And the short, not nuanced at all answer is no. This is a story about racism and white privilege. Junior's story is about how he goes from a reluctant member of a society that doesn't accept him to a brave leader who advocates for change and the betterment of his home. His story is intertwined with Emma's, but ultimately has its own agency and its own outcome. It's more about how he accepts that this is his home, and he has a right not just to live in it, but a responsibility to fight for it. Emma's story is about how she realizes that even though she doesn't try to hurt people with hatred, she still exhibits behaviors that she was not previously aware of that are problematic. and it's about how she overcomes that and puts aside her personal flaws to help other people. This last part is why I feel it's important for me personally to tell this story. I feel like Emma's role is definitely a reflection of my own experiences. So here's a bit of personal drama from when I came up with the story. I was definitely in Emma's shoes. I was unaware of some very deep personal biases that I had. This isn't something that I'm proud of, and it's something that I actually think about every single day. Now, to make it clear, I didn't actively hate the people that I was biased against, but I did have reservations against them that I didn't realize were there. Right around the time I started developing Scales of the West was when I discovered that there was something wrong with me, and thinking back on who I was, I regret it very much. The Black Lives Matter protests really changed me. When it was all going down and people started talking about it, you really got to see how friend groups became divided on the issue. I started to see who in my circle of friends was trustworthy and who wasn't, and the people that I stopped talking to were a lot closer than I expected. And when those people were gone, it was like a big veil was lifted and I saw everything clearly. I saw how terrible of a person I was to people that, despite my biases, I cared about very much. I realized too late why I wasn't as close with people I got along with as I wanted to be, and why I was suddenly alone when I had all those fallings out with people that I thought I could count on. My life definitely went a different direction than I expected, and not in a good way. I let my biases hold me back from a lot of things, and I'm never going to get back what I lost, but I'm working every single day to build something new and something better. I'm paying attention to important issues, I'm asking questions, I'm doing research, and I'm doing my best to make informed decisions. Most importantly, I learned that the most important thing is to ask yourself how your decisions affect other people, because they always do, even if you don't think they do. One thing I will say is the people who have stuck with me through all of it and have helped me become a better person, I'm grateful to all of them, and this story is about that too. It's about helping each other in a harsh world that often punishes more than it rewards, and it's about sticking together and overcoming your personal flaws and becoming better people together. Because at the end of the day, all we have is each other, and we need to help each other, or we won't survive. Okay, series talk over. I made a fan cast of Scales of the West. It was definitely for my own personal satisfaction, but in the very unlikely event that someone decides to turn my story into a feature film, here are my picks for the main cast. First off, we got Sophia Lillis as Emma. She was previously in the It movies and Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. She is Emma. Like, I see her in movies and I see pictures of her and I can't not see her as this character. She's got the hair, the eyes, the complexion, the build, the voice, and most importantly, the acting skills. Now, Emma does have a Texan accent, but I'm like 90% sure that she can pull this off. She is my number one for Emma, and I can't picture anybody else better suited for this role than her. Next up as Junior, we have Dakota Beavers, who was previously in the movie Prey, one of my favorite movies of last year. Junior is a guy who acts as though nothing affects him, but deep down inside, you can tell that something is eating away at him. And Dakota's character in Prey is a lot like that. He was someone who had to be the focused leader, but he also really cared about his sister and couldn't escape his inner truth. And when the chips were down, he would do anything for the people he cared about. So really, this role is perfect for him. Next up as Nate, I choose Forrest Goodluck. He played Leonardo DiCaprio's son in the movie The Revenant. You have no idea who Nate is, and I'm going to try to expand on that without giving too much away. Nate is someone who was brought up to care about people his whole life. He understands that his position in life is oftentimes difficult. It's something that he protects very passionately and he keeps very quiet about. But he also just likes people. Like, he's very introverted and very shy around new people. But he just genuinely cares about his fellow human being. I think based on what I saw in The Revenant, Forrest Goodluck could actually do a really good job with this character. Next, we got Calvin Ruth, the racist new marshal, and for him, I chose David Morse. He's a very seasoned actor, he's been in a lot of stuff, The Green Mile, World War Z, The Rock. One role that absolutely sold me on him portraying this character well is actually his role in Disturbia as Robert Turner. Even standing in the same room as this guy is creepy as shit, and that is exactly the kind of feeling I want Calvin Ruth to give off. And that's it for Scales of the West. As I said before, the book is underway. If and when it does get published, I will definitely let you guys know. I'm having a lot of fun writing it. This is a story that I care a lot about, and I hope you all get to read it someday. In the meantime, thank you guys so much for listening to all of this. It means a lot that you're here, and I'm working really hard to make sure that this video wasn't for nothing. So stay tuned for more updates in the future. As always, be sure to like this video and subscribe, follow us on all our social medias, and please support our Patreon so you can get the chance to request a movie or show you'd like to see us talk about next. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Diego for Cinemageddon Reviews, and I'll see you on the Wasteland.